What is the origin of this deity YHVH? Biblical narratives assert that the relation between YHVH and Israel had not existed from the beginning. According to the biblical account, this deity appeared to Moshe while he was tending his father-in-law's flocks to pasture. He was lost, and then he arrived at a mountain of God called Horeb. Or we get another form of introduction. So alternatively, Yahweh introduces himself or appears to Moshe when Moshe found himself again in Egypt. Most of you haven't paid attention to this. We'll look at the scriptures shortly. So, Yahweh appears to Moshe while Moshe was leading his father-in-law's flocks to pasture, number one. Meets him at a mountain of God called Horeb. And alternatively, when Moshe found himself again in Egypt. First instance, Exodus 3. Moshe was pasturing the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, the chief of Midian, and he led the flocks after the free pasture land. And he came to the mountain of Elohim, to Horeb. An angel of YHVH appeared to him in a flame of fire from within the thorn bush, and behold, the thorn bush was burning with fire, but the thorn bush was not being consumed. So Moshe said, "Let me turn now and see this great spectacle. Why does the thorn bush not burn up?" YHVH saw that he had turned to see, and Elohim called to him from within the thorn bush, and he said, "Moshe, Moshe." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not draw near here. Take your shoes off your feet, because the place upon which you stand is holy soil." And he said, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Yaakov." And Moshe hid his face because he was afraid to look towards God. And YHVH said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their slave drivers, for I know their pains. I have descended to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression that the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now come, and I will send you to Pharaoh, and take my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." So according to the biblical text, we have this introduction, Exodus 3. Alternatively, like I said, we have another introduction that most people haven't realized or paid attention to in Exodus 6. God spoke to Moshe and he said to him, "I am YHVH. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob with the name El Shaddai. But with my name YHVH, I did not become known to them. And also I established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings, in which they sojourned. And also I heard the moans of the children of Israel, when the Egyptians, whom the Egyptians, are holding in bondage, and I remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the children of Israel, I am YHVH, and I will take you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will save you from their labor, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgment. And I will take you to me as a people, and I will be a God to you, and you will know that I am YHVH, your God, whom has brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land concerning which I raised my hand to give to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and I will give it to you as a heritage. I am YHVH. So we have two introductions. One in Exodus 3, that was at Horeb, and then in Egypt, Exodus 6. Two introductions. These two different biblical accounts of the commissioning of Moshe by the God YHVH both locate this event outside the land of Israel. This is what I want to point out. Either in Egypt, Exodus 6, or a region located between Egypt and Judea, Exodus 3. So the deity, the God, YHVH, has a non-Israelite origin. This is critical. It's extremely important. And this has become the established consensus in scholarly circles. YHVH was not the original God of Israel. He became. And this is what this series is about. We are looking at his resume. Where did he come from? His origins. If this is the case, if the God of the Hebrews did not have a non-Israelite origin, if the God YHVH has a non-Israelite origin, then what is his origins? Where will our search for his origins lead us? Would it lead us to Ibla? Or maybe Mari? I think maybe Egypt. What do you think about Ugarit? What about the south of the Negev? Have you met her there or met him there before? What about the region of the Sinai? Why do I mention these places? I mention these places as possible places of origin because there are various hypotheses based on texts containing names that some have thought could be linked to that of YHVH from these places. Let's go through some of them. Can we look at these places and then find texts that may contain YHVH and make some links, or maybe write them off? Let's start with Ibla. So, what do we know about Ibla? Ibla was an important site in Syria from the 3rd millennium onwards. Excavations conducted here have revealed archives comprising more than 17,000 clay tablets. And these clay tablets are written in Sumerian or Iblate. I think that's how you pronounce the local dialect language. Now, these documents concern especially the 15th and 14th centuries texts which contains a number of personal names ending in Yah. If I was dishonest, I would say bingo. Anyone with a personal name ending in Yah is Hebrew. Not at all. That's not what we're doing here. The case against Ibla with this Yah, with names ending in Yah, is that no God by the name YHVH appears in any of the list of gods to whom sacrifice is offered. So there was no god YHVH at Ibla. So we cannot go with Ibla as the origins. Let's try Mari. What do we know about Mari? Mari was also an important city in the third and especially the second millennium. It's located on the Euphrates near the present border between Syria and Iraq. This place has also revealed to archaeologists a magnificent palace and, for our interest, an abundance of documents. The discovered documents contain references to proper names like Yahweh Elium. These names derived from a root signifying to manifest oneself. To manifest oneself. This cannot be linked with Yahweh because there contain no name of a divinity here. What we have here is merely a verbal form signifying he manifests himself. So there is no name of a divinity here. So we cannot place YHVH at Mari as his origin. Not at all. Let's try Ugarit. What do we have? What do we know about Ugarit? Well, Ugarit is located in present-day Syria. It was a prosperous city-state during the 14th and the 13th century. Also here, excavations has been done and have brought to light an impressive number of documents relating to administration, religious practices, and myths. In one of the mythological texts found here at Ugarit, there is a passage that seems to describe a banquet given by the god El. Now, only fragments of the original text exists, but one phrase seems to mean something like this. The name of my son, Yudva, goddess / God. Is that Yah? Is that a short form of Yahweh? Some have interpreted this as a shortened form of the name of the God of Israel. So, on this reading, the God El would be saying, the name of my son is Yahweh, YHVH. This would then suggest that in the 13th or 12th century, YHVH might have been known in Ugarit and, let's say, marginally integrated into the Ugarit pantheon, or rather is Ugaritic pantheon. Now, honestly, we cannot definitively exclude a link between YHVH in the Ugaritic text. However, this passage is too fragmentary and unclear to support the thesis that there was worship of the god YHVH in Ugarit, or even that YHVH's origins were in Ugarit. It's too fragmentary. It would be risky to assert that here. I don't think we're standing on firm ground to actually assert that here. Now, we do know of Yam, god of the sea, in the Levantine pantheon. We do know that. What we have here may be just a scribal error, where Yud-Va has replaced Yam. So the scribe wants to write Yam, YM, but rather wrote YW. And these errors occur frequently in the copying of Ugaritic texts. We have other cases for that. So I wouldn't assert, I don't think it's firm grounds enough to place the origins of Yud-He-Vav-He here, Ugarit. Let's come to Egypt. Now, in an Egyptian papyrus dating from the 1330 to 1230, we see a proper name that might be thought to contain an abbreviated form of Yud-He-Vav-He, namely Yah. I'll repeat that again. In an Egyptian papyrus dating from 1330 to 1230, there is a proper name that might be thought to contain an abbreviated form of Yud-He-Vav-He, namely Yah. Okay, this name could be a transcription of a Canaanite proper name, Adonai Rohe Yah. My Lord is the shepherd of Yah. There is an issue here though. This theophoric name, a name with the name of a deity attached to it, is composed of three elements, which is contrary to what we are used to, the norm of only two elements. So what could this be? This three-element theophoric name. We could therefore think of another interpretation, that the theophoric name here, which ends in Yah, the Yah here is being used as a toponym, which is a place name. So Yud-He-Vav-He here, or Yah here, is a name of a place, which we do have evidence of. In an inscription of Amenhotep III of Solub in the Sudan, and also in a list inscribed in the hall of the Temple of Ramses II at West Amara, Yahweh seems to be a geographical term, probably referring to a mountain. We'll deal with that when we get to talk about Sinai. So Yahweh seems to be, in these inscriptions, Yahweh seems to be a geographical term, maybe referring to a mountain, and perhaps also a divine name. We are not ruling a divine name out. How do we explain this? The explanation of this duality might be that the God of certain places could come to be identified with that place and thus takes its name from that place. This is how we can explain the duality that we have here. The first place name in this list is Seir. And this is referring in general to all the territory in which the specific places mentioned later in the list are located. And this would add further weight to the fact that the oldest attested occurrence of YHVH are from the south of Palestine, the territory of Edom and Arabah. I repeat that. The oldest attested occurrences of YHVH are from the south of Palestine, the territory of Edom and Arabah. This would add further weight to this fact. One can combine all this evidence with a biblical tradition that represents YHVH as a deity coming from the south. We have 4 poetical texts in the Hebrew Bible that ascribe to the deity YHVH a southern origin. We will delve into those 4 poetic texts in our next video.